Hey there, nation. Welcome to the show. We show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and today is another edition of Ninth Age Battle Reports. This time is Battle Report number 6. It is a 2,000 point battle with my People Eaters, my new Ogre army, versus Sir Wardsalot of the Knights of Race, which is his 2,000 point Knights of Equitaine army. So this time I decided to abandon the Hellfist for my Ogre and just go with the straight up 2,000 point army with the Ogre without any marks of chaos. I'm sorry, mark of guards rather. So I decided to go up against my buddy the Knights of Race with Sir Wardsalot. And the reason why he's called Sir Wardsalot because he plays a Knights of Equitaine army. As we know, those guys ward like it's nobody's business. So let's see what happens with 2,000 points of Ogre go up against a bunch of bronies, basically. Magical bronies. Alright, let's go attack my army, which is the People Eaters. It is a 2,000 point mercenary Ogre army. So let's go over the Lords and Heroes choices first of all. So for my heel general, we have Commander CheapSkate. He's got a great con with the Headhunter big name, as well as Kaigadai's Maul and the Armor of Destiny. So I gave him a heavy armor with a +4 ward save. Also gave him Kaigadai's Maul because giving D3 multiple wounds with strength 7 is always a good idea. And Headhunter because he needs to heal up sometimes. After that, we have Barons of Meaty. He's a great shaman with Rotten Jaw. Big name. He's got a level 4 upgrade, Iron Fist, as well as Dispel Scroll. After that, we have Shaka Khan, who is a Khan with a Spine Splitter and a big name. He's a BSB with a Skull of Quinget, as well as Iron Fist. So another combat-oriented con, and plus, poison attacks on my Great Shaman is always a good idea, especially for your unit of tribesmen who are not very strong. For my core choice, we have the Red Rovers, which is a unit of 7 tribesmen with full command, Iron Fist, as well as heavy iron armor. After that, we have the Iron Guts, which is 7 bruisers with full command, and finally we have the Expendables, which are 24 scraplings with full command. For my special choice, we have the CheapSkates, which are 7 mercenary veterans of full command, Iron Fists, and for their battle scarred special rules, I gave them Bodyguard as lethal and was lethal strike, and that's where my general basically goes in because having Stumble on unit is pretty deadly, and having AP 6 no regeneration when you roll 6 to wound is always awesome. And then finally, for my bird choice, we have the Hammer of the Gods, which is a Thunder Cannon. That brings my army to a grand total of 2,002 points. Alright, let's talk about Sir Wardsalot's army, which is the Knights of Race. It's a Knights of Equitaine army. For his Lord Hero choice, he has Duke Gilles de Rais, who is a Duke with a Flail, Bartered Warhost, Grail Oath, Virtue of Piety, is also armed with Dragonlance, as well as a Talisman of Roland. After that, we have Lise of Tears, who's a Grail Damsel, rather. She has level 4 upgrade, Magic Resistance 2 upgrade, Bartered Warhorse, Wafers of Penitence, the Shield, the Talisman of Supreme Shielding, as well as the Path of Nature. After that, we have Jean Laire, who is a Paladin with a Shield, Flail, Bartered Warhorse, Battle Standard Bearer upgrade. He's got the Questing Oath and the Virtue of Might, as well as Banner of the Last Charge, which is actually was pretty deadly in this battle report, but you'll see that in a second. And then finally, we have Lorelei of the Shadows. She is a Damsel with level 2 upgrade, Magic Resistance 1, as well as a Dispel Scroll. For Sir Wardsalot's core choices, we have the Laurels of Equitaine. It is a 9-man unit of Knights of the Realm with full command and also equipped with flails. After that, we have the Unrequited, which are 6 Knights of Spirits with full command and heavy armor. And then finally, for his last core choice, he has the Ladies Rangers, which are 10 peasant bowmen armed with braziers as well as skirmishers. For his special choice, he has the Hedge Knights, which are 9 Knights of the Quest with full command and the Hedge Knight upgrade. And for his rare choice, he has Cour de Cour, which is basically 9 Knights of the Grail with full command. And that brings his grand total to 2,003 points.
Assemble the army!
Alright, what the army is going to deploy, let's go talk about deployment real fast. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table once again, and as you can see, my army is actually kind of concentrated towards the center and the left side of the board. And as you can see, my opponent's got his army really spread out. He's got some guys on the left-hand side of his army, he's got some guys on the right-hand side, and he also has guys inside of my deployment zone with his scouting abilities. So, pretty spread out on this one, and basically be charged out from multiple directions, which will be kind of interesting to see how that works. So, with that being said, let's go on to the close-ups. Alright, so this is Ogre on the left-hand side. As you can see there, I got my Hammer of the Gods, and following right next to them are my Iron Guts, as well as my Shaka Khan, who's my Battle Standard Bearer as well. So they kind of make up the left-hand side of my army. So that's the on the left-hand flank. And for my center, as you can see on the left-hand side there, I have my General Commander CheapSkate with my CheapSkates, which are my 7 mercenary veterans who are located on the whites there. And the center part there, you have Barons of Meaty, who is my Great Shaman, with his Red Rovers, which is 7 tribesmen over there. On the far right hand, basically making my flank are my Expendables, which are my 24 scraplings. So that makes it deploying for my army on this battle report. Alright, so let's talk about my opponent's left flank over here. As you can see, he's got his Knights of Spirit, those 6 of those guys right there on the left-hand side. And right next to them, we basically have the Ladies Rangers with those 10 Peasant Bowsmen with skirmishing. Those little spikes there are there to represent the fact they have braziers. And then that Wizard proxy there, which from the Empire Wizard proxy is the Lorelei of the Shadows, who is his level 2 damsel. So that makes up the Knights of Equitaine left-hand flank. And make up the Knights of Equitaine's right flank. As you can see there, he's got his Cour de Cour, which is his 9-man unit of Grail Knights, as well as Laurels of Equitaine, which is a 9-man unit of Knights of the Realm. And the Grail Knight unit is basically has his Duke with all of his upgrades, and then in the Knights of the Realm group, represented by that, being proxied by that Green Knight model, is his Grail Damsel, his level 4 wizard on that side. So that makes up the right-hand side of the Knights of Equitaine's deployment. And in the Knights of Equitaine's far right deployment, you can see that unit called the Hedge Knights, which is that unit of 9 Knights of the Quest, basically. And those guys have scouting special abilities, and in that unit, he's also got his BSB Jean Lorelei here. He's that turquoise colored knight over there as well. So they're right there in my deployment zone, and that's just all kinds of bad for me. So now I got to worry about scouting knights now in 9th Age. But you know what? This is going to be kind of fun because I never fought Bretonnians or Knights of Equitaine before in my life, so I'm looking forward to the challenge. So yeah, that's deployment. With that being said, we move on directly to turn number 1. And turn number 1 goes for the Ogre Cons. The reason why is because my opponent decides to stop and basically to pray for the blessing of the lady, which I didn't realize is a thing. I didn't realize that Bretonnians get a 6 of ward save for all attacks, but they also get a 5 of ward save if they choose to against attack with either armor piercing or with strength 5. And since I got a lot of strength 5 guys in my army, Sir Ward's lot with the strength 5 ward save. So now all those guys have 5 of ward saves. All those guys have magical resistance of some sort. They get bonuses to ward saves as well. Basically, this army is the most wardiest ward-saving army I've ever faced, so I've never seen anything like this before in my life. But anyways, regardless of that, I basically, as you can see here, my top of turn number 1 with the Ogre Cons, I basically just send everything forward as quickly as possible. Basically, I just march everything. On the left-hand side there, you can see I got my cannon set to face on those knights coming at me up to the left-hand side. As you can see on the very far right, I send my scrapplays to deal with that scouting unit knights, and then my 3 big units of ogres, I just kind of set them up in a kind of perimeter next to those pieces of impassable terrain, which is the pig farm on the left-hand side and the regular farm on the right-hand side. So that is deployment on this part. Not deployment, sorry, movement phase on this one. Here's a picture, a close-up of the Hammer of the Gods aiming his massive cannon straight at that unit of Knights of Spirit, and I'm going to blow those guys back to the Great Lady of the Lake if they keep on coming towards me. Here's a close-up of my 3 Ogre units, both my Iron Guts, my CheapSkates, as well as my Red Rovers with their respective characters, and basically just kind of like fighting in position to try to protect their flanks using those impassable pieces of terrain there in the center. So that looks pretty good. And here's a picture of my scratlings, kind of getting in the way there to receive the charge from those Hedge Knights. That way I can protect myself against that scouting unit of knights, because that's what scratlings do best. So with movement out of the way, we go directly onto the magic phase. And during the magic phase, the only spell I basically got off was the ability that basically gives my Scratlings a +1 up on the strength, which is Entrail Gorger. I basically got that off, so I gave my Scratlings a +1 strength, making them strength 4, which I thought was kind of cool because that way they can kind of stick it to those knights when they charge them. Unfortunately, between all of the magic resistance that my opponent had in his army with ward saves on those guys, as well as all the dispel abilities that my opponent had, and combined with the magic resistance levels that most of his units had as well, most of my spells were ineffective or basically got dispelled. So I can just tell right now that this battle is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be a grinding battle. But anyways, that's what happened in the magic phase. And with that, we go directly into the shooting phase. As you can see in this picture, the Hammer of the Gods basically takes aim at the unit of Knights of Spirit, fires off, and manages to plink off 2 of those guys. So right now, 2 of those Knights of Spirits are dead. Because I killed over a quarter of those guys, they have to take a panic check, and they flee off the board, which is pretty freaking epic as far as I'm concerned. However, the only sad part about this is that I realized I only have 1 item in my entire army that can shoot, which is kind of scary because before in the other battle reports I had my Bombardiers, and now I'm realizing that I'm kind of missing them now since they're not around to basically blow chunks in the entire army's lines, my enemy's army's lines. So because of that, I'm feeling a little vulnerable in the shooting phase. But can't really argue with the results of the Hammer of the Gods, so that's end of shooting. And since there's no close combat going on in my turn, we go directly to bottom of turn number 1 for the Knights of Equitaine. So this is the bottom of turn number 1 for the Knights of Equitaine after movement. And as I said before, my opponent basically let me go first because he decided to pray instead and gain that 6 up ward for his entire army, but this plus is 5 up ward for anything with string 5 and over. And basically, after he did that, he started moving all of his guys. Basically, he failed charges. He tried to charge with his Grail Knights up in the top, as well as his Knights of the Realm. Tried to charge to my 2 front units of my CheapSkates, as well as my Red Rovers, but unfortunately for him, he basically failed his charge because that his Knights really don't go anywhere in that movement phase. So that's moving on this side of the board. And over here, basically, when he charges with his Hedge Knights, he successfully crashes right into the front of my Scratling units. So those guys will be going into close combat here in a little bit. And with the charges done and movement is also done, we go directly to the Magic phase. Alright, my opponent basically for his Magic phase had a pretty epic win. He managed to generate 11 dice. I had only, 5. And then he also managed to channel another one. So he was up to 12 power dice up to my just original 5, which is kind of rough on that. So because I got a lot of his spells basically launched off. As you can see in this picture here, basically gives up the Stone Skin ability onto that unit of Grail Knights, gives up +2 toughness, which would be a major pain when I have to go up against those guys when I charge them and fight against those guys. And he also gave his Knights of the Realm a +2 region, +5 region save on them as well, which is also be kind of hard for me too when I take those guys on. So that's Magic phase on this side of the board. And to add insult to injury, he manages to get off the signature spell for the Path of the Wilderness and gives his Bowman as well as his Wizard a +1 strength, +1 toughness as well. So basically, he just targeted the 3 units I was going to try and charge next turn and basically just give him all buffs of some sort for me to deal with. So now you have buffs as well as combined with wards, as well as combined with magic resistance. It's just going to be a rough battle. But anyways, that's Magic phase. Shooting for him was basically kind of a wash, so we don't need to cover that. Without any shooting going on, we basically go to the close combat phase. And the battle phase was pretty disastrous for my Scraplings. Actually, the thing that really killed a lot of my Scraplings was that Thunderous Charge ability with that magic banner that unit of Hedge Knights have. Basically, they got 9 of my Scraplings killed just with that Thunderous Charge, adding +1 to the strength of the attack of the War Horses, which really kind of hurt, and also giving them impact hits, which also is not that great as well. So because of that, it was kind of bad for my army. However, I was kind of proud of the way that my Scraplings basically fought back. They managed to kill off 4 of those Knights with their +1 strength that was added to him, which is kind of nice. However, with the other Knights attacking back, basically they killed like another, I think, 5 or 6 of my Scraplings left. Basically, it was down to 16 dudes. With the combat res, I had to flee. They pursued and they destroyed them. So it was pretty rough like that. So now my flank for my army is now open up for these questing Knights to charge into, which is not awesome at all. So with combat being done with, we go directly on to turn number 2. So as the top of turn 2 after moving for the Ogre cons, as you can see here, basically I just charged everything inward as fast as I could. I sent my Iron Guts charging to that unit of archers. I sent my CheapSkates with my my character Lord Commander CheapSkate indirectly to the Grail Knights. I tried to charge with my Ogres, my regular tribesmen with my Red Rovers, but unfortunately they failed their charge roll. So basically only moved up about 3 inches, which is kind of rough as that. As you can see on the bottom of the page, I turned the hammer of the guys to basically start aiming down the center where those questing Knights are located at. So that is movement for the most part on this side of the board. Here's a close-up of my Iron Guts with Saga charging to the front of those bowmen. And they have +1 strength as well as +1 toughness, but I'm still pretty confident that my boys will be able to take care of that. So, I mean, they're just bowmen after all. They have no real armor save, plus a wizard, so what could they really do? So that's the close-up on this side. Here's a close-up of my Thunder Cannon, basically turning to the right in order to blast those questing Knights back to the hot place. So these get ready to destroy some questing Knight Paladins and send them to go see their deity, which is Lady Lake, of course. So that's always awesome. And here's a close-up Commander CheapSkate, as well as CheapSkate Ogre Mercenary Veterans charging the front of those Grail Knights, about to bring the pain on. So that basically makes up all the charges for this one. And so with charging done, we move on directly to the Magic phase. Which didn't really happen with the Magic phase because, like I said before, between magic levels as well as dispels taking place, most of my spells were dispelled. So because of that, with no shooting, my shooting was also kind of off. I missed hitting my opponents because we went directly to the combat phase. So you can see in this picture, basically my my Iron Guts basically just destroyed that unit of archers. They didn't really stand a chance. The archers tried to strike back, but they're unable to wound, hit, or to penetrate the armor, so because I allowed those guys to make it. Combined with impacting hits and the attacks from Shaka Khan, followed by the follow-up attacks with the great weapons, basically made those guys mincemeat. We just absolutely destroyed that army. So because of that, my guys got their free combat reform. They turned to the right-hand side and started giving support to my mercenary veterans here in a little bit. So that is combat on this side of the board. And this fight was also pretty epic as well. First of all, my commander CheapSkate gets put in the challenge with my opponent's general, so those two basically fight out with their duel. Unfortunately, neither guy was able to penetrate or wound each other at all, so because of that, it kind of stopped. Like I said, that +5 ward against strength 5 or higher attacks is a real pain, especially since this army, this unit here, was all strength 5 guys, so that was really rough as well. At the end of the day, though, however, I managed to kill off about 4 of those Knights of the Grail, which is, it would have been more if it wasn't for those ward saves, so I was kind of sad about that. But at the same time, I managed to pop off one of my one of my mercenary veterans, as well as managed to put another wound, a floating wound, onto one of my other CheapSkates as well. I won this combat, but because of the high leadership that the Bretonnians have, basically they stick it out for another round, which is kind of rough as well. Plus, having that 2-up toughness is also really difficult to basically wound as well. So kudos to my opponent for basically getting all those saves on his guys. So that was pretty awesome. So with close combat done, we go to the bottom of turn 2 for the Knights of Equitaine, and this is the picture after movement phase. As you can see, basically he just charges everything he has into me directly. So as you can see, that I got my my Red Rovers with my Great Shaman at pincer attack. He's got the Knights of the Realm charging in the front, and he's got his Questing Knights hitting in the rear as well. So that kind of ruins my shot to be able to take out those Questing Knights on next turn with my cannon. So that was kind of rough as well. So that is the movement for this side of the board. And here's a close-up of the pain train that is coming my way, which is kind of rough. I'm getting attacked on both sides from charging lances at my Red Rover. So that just spells all kinds of bad for me. So I'm kind of sad about that part. But, you know, what can you do? I'm fighting a Knights Equitaine army, and charging with Knights is kind of like their thing. So that's the close-up for this one. Unfortunately, I forgot to take the picture of my opponent's magic phase in this one, so that is why you're getting this apology right now. I apologize for that. I was basically kind of like was sitting on my shoulders there and had my head on my rear end, and I was too very busy thinking about what I was going to do instead of actually taking pictures of that part. But basically, suffice to say, my opponent basically, using your power of imagination, just imagine my opponent basically getting off the growth spell that basically gives him D3+1 wounds, healing back, and getting 4 of his Grill Knights back, because that's basically what he did. He threw all of his dice at that spell, and that went off. I managed to spill everything else, but that's what happens. So the next frame, if you see all those Knights during the combat phase being back, that is what you're seeing. So yeah, sorry. So with magic over with, and there's no more shooting, you go directly into the close combat phase. You can see in this picture, I finally managed to plink off the enemy general, managed to finally kill his ass. So that part was kind of cool. Finally, it was kind of frustrating before, but I managed to do it. Basically, I slipped off the last 2 wounds on him. Neither his ward or his armor save managed to save from that part, and so because of that, I basically inflicted 5 wounds with the D3 wounds apiece, and I killed their general. So that part was pretty freaking epic. So with the duel over, we can now go directly to the rest of the combat phase. And as you can see in this picture, the combat phase was even more brutal even after the fact. Basically, they killed off another one of my Ogre mercenaries, my mercenary veterans, and managed to put 2 more wounds on top of one of my other guys as well, which is kind of rough as well. And then I managed to plink off another 4 more of those Grail Knights as well. However, even though with all the damage and the wounds taking place, they basically stick it out, and they're back for another round of combat. So I have the sneaking suspicion that the only reason why I'm still alive in this combat is because my opponent ran out of points to get flails for his Knights. For the rest of his army, basically whenever he gets stuck past the first round of combat to lance charges, he's using flails to give him +2 strength, +1 to hit as well against his army, because that's what they use when they get done using their lances after the jousting special rules. So I think that is the only reason why my mercenary veterans are sticking around, because I gotta tell you, these Knights of Equitaine, they are brutal. So yeah, that's kind of with this side of the board. And combat went poorly over here on this side of the board as well. With that 5-up region that they got for the last magic phase, basically those Knights of the Realm basically kind of stuck it out. I managed to kill 3 of those Knights with poison attacks, because I kind of popped the Rotten John big name for that one, but I didn't have enough attacks or wounding enough attacks in order to get those Questing Knights behind me, so because of that, I lost on that part. Between the wounds that were generated, plus being the pincer attack, I broke, they pursued, they destroyed me, so now those Knights are sitting there pretty with nothing to kill. So they decided to combat reform, switch directions, and start painting out targets for them to charge at. So it looks like that my opponent is planning on sending his Questing Knights after my Thunder Cannon and his Knights of the Realm to that nice little flank on my Mercenary Veterans next turn. So that's pretty rough. But anyways, that being said, that's done with the combat phase. And with combat over, we go directly to turn number 3. So this is the top of turn 3 for the Ogre counts after movement. And basically, as you can see there, I just sent everything forward as quickly as I possibly could. My Iron Guts with my great icon on the top basically marches as quickly as it can in order to get the class of combat, to give support to my CheapSkates as well as Commander CheapSkate. On the bottom of the page, you can see the Thunder Cannon basically moving up another 6 inches to get close enough to be able to shoot at my opponent for the next turn as well. So that makes up the move for this side of the board. With my wizard gone, my magic phase is basically deep 6, so because of that, we go directly into the shooting phase, and I basically open up with my great cannon, manage to plink off 2 more of those questing knights. That unit is now basically down to about almost a third, almost a quarter of its original size, which is kind of nice as well. So because of that, that was pretty sweet. Unfortunately for me, they passed their panic test. So they basically stay in the place, and they're not going anywhere either. So curses. But oh well. I feel better now knowing those 2 of those questing knights are now dead, and that they're not going to go back to the round table. So. Anyways, with shooting over, we go directly to the close combat phase. In the end, with my commander CheapSkate as well as the CheapSkates fighting back, we managed to finish off the last of those Grail Knights, which is pretty nice as well. However, they managed to kill my last, one of my mercenary veterans as well. Managed to put another floating wound on top of one of my guys in the back rank. So that part's pretty sad. I won't get any bonuses from ranks now if I ever get charged or get in close combat, but you know, it's what I'll take. So with that enemy being destroyed, I basically passed my combat reform. And we turn to face the Knights of the Realm that are charging my way. So now, which is kind of nice, we have the ability in order to take on both of my units as to take on that unit of Knights of the Realm as well. Plus, I got that backup unit of Iron Guts who will be able to help me out next round anyways. So it's all good. And so because of that, I'm now ready for my opponent's charge if he decides to do so in the next turn. So with my turn done, we go directly to the turn for the Knights of the Equitaine. So here's the bottom of turn number 3 after movement for the Knights of Equitaine, and basically he charges everything he has into my mercenary veterans to basically kill my general as well as that big huge unit of mercenary veterans as well. His Knights of the Realm have no problem charging to my front rank, but his Knights, his questing Knights, I didn't think they were able to charge through that farm, which are basically counted as a force because of dangerous terrain tests. So I was like, you're going to charge through it? Okay, man, but you're going to lose most of your guys because he's only got 4 guys left. However, he has the Strider special rule for forests. So because of that, he had nothing to worry about. He just charged directly at me and basically got me stuck in. So now I'm facing down 2 units of Knights, which is just glorious. But, you know, I was kind of prepared for this, so we'll see what happens with that. So with that, we move on directly to the magic phase. I'm sorry, I lied. I gotta show you a close-up real fast so that we can see a good idea what's happening. So you can see that he's got his questing Knights as well as his Knights of the Realm taking on my CheapSkates as well as Commander CheapSkate as well. So there's a close-up. So for this time, for reals this time, we're going directly to the magic phase. My opponent tries to cast that Dwellers from Below spell, which is basically the old one where basically they kind of suck you into the warp and cause multiple wounds 10. Unfortunately for him, however, he rolls a miscast with overwhelming power on that part.
Klaatu! Veranda!
Unfortunately for him, he rolls on the miscast table. I think he gets a 5, which is basically a small round template one, and basically pops off 3 more Knights of the Realm. These are Knights of the Realm that he cannot afford to lose. He also managed to kill one of my, mercenary veterans as well, managed to put a wound on top of his wizard as well, so that part was kind of rough as well. But to make this part actually kind of funny and adding insult to injury, where basically all my veterans have to take a strength test, and because most of these guys are strength 5, it ended up being really simple. I just rolled like a bunch of 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s, and basically all those guys survived. So not only did my opponent's spell not work, and he had to go with an overwhelming force and kill most of his Knights of the Realm, his spell basically abandoned him in the end, which is kind of funny in my opinion. Bad for my opponent, but hilarious for me. But anyways, magic over, we go directly to the combat phase. And the Lady of the Lake basically abandoned her knights in this round of combat. Basically, they chopped down my army, about this unit down to only 3 guys left, including my commander as well. Basically, I lost everybody else in combat. But in the process of doing that, I managed to kill off his mage, his damsel rather, and managed to kill off the remaining of the Knights of the Realm as well. And I also managed to kill Jean Laire because Jean Laire challenged my Commander CheapSkate, as it's called. I basically killed off Jean Laire as well, and my mercenary veterans basically finish off the Knights of the Realm for me. So because of that, the only thing that's remaining left for my opponent is 3 Knights of the Grail. I have 1 wound on top of my general as well as 1 wound on one of my veterans, but you know what, all in all, ended up being pretty successful. So plus I have those Iron Guts that can also help me on the next round anyways. So with that, we go directly to my opponent's turn on this one. Unfortunately for them, that battle, my opponent basically looks at what's left over for his army, realizes the only thing he has left are 3 Grail Knights. I still have my Thunder Cannon, as well as my Iron Guts, and the rest of my Mercenary Veterans, my Great Khan, and he decides to call the game at this point, and basically just surrenders at that point. And I don't really blame him because basically I still have about a third of my army left behind. His army is destroyed, but man, this combat was bloody, it was drawn out, and I was not expecting the kind of destruction I faced at the hands of these Knights of Equitaine. Most people say like how Bretonnians and Warhammer were kind of weak, and so I just assume that that same kind of weakness is brought over. No, these guys are not weak at all. They are way, way, way powerful, and they are more than able to bring the fight to you, no problem whatsoever. So because of that, we'll talk about that, however, some more when we talk about the After Action report, but we'll address that later because right now this game is now over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
All right, this is the After Action report. This is the part of the battle where we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time for the next time we do battle. So this is the After Action report for 9th Age Battle Report number 6. It was I, Commander CheapSkate, with my People Eaters Ogre Khan's army versus Sir Wardslot with the Knights of Race, his 2,000-point Knights of Equitaine army. It ended up being a victory for yours truly. So let's talk about some of the things that went well and what we learned about this so that we can talk about for next time. First of all, I like the changes away from the Hellfist. Yeah, I lost a lot of my abilities without the Marks of Dark Gods, like having +1 to hit for my troops with Wrath, or having -1 to hit with Marks of Pestilence, or having the ability to change up my different types of magical attacks with Mark of Change. But in exchange, I also freed up a lot of points to get things I couldn't get in my previous army, and to get certain units that I couldn't get either. So because of that, it seemed like a pretty good fair trade. My army is a lot larger now. I have a lot more points I can dump into things. So I'm pretty sure me and the Dark Gods have basically parted way with this Ogre Khan's army for the foreseeable future. First of all, Scraplings. Those guys are ridiculously good chaff units when you buff them up correctly. I can't imagine what would happen if I managed to get off not only just Intro Gorge, where it gives them +1 strength, but also give them Toothcracker or Stubborn or any one of the other buffs that you can get from the Path of Butchery, because there are some pretty powerful ones as that. And I can imagine this like a horde brick of Scraplings just buffed up ridiculously and just having to hold down things like it's nobody's business. So I thought that was kind of cool as well. Also, with the points they had freed up from getting rid of them Hellfist big name, I like having the larger units they have now. All my units, my main fighting units, have at least 7 ogres within each unit, and they also have a character to help buff up as well. So because of that, it's really helpful when I use them against larger enemy units as well. Kind of short up a lot of my weaknesses with being outnumbered all the time, so that part is pretty sweet as well. And another thing I love about this army are my mercenary veterans. Those guys are the illest. When you combine those guys with Bodyguard and giving them the Stubborn special rule, as well as Lethal Strike, it's pretty deadly with these guys. They cut right through armor, basically, and they just start going killing you dudes. And plus, they also stop regeneration saves as well. So if I don't have flaming attacks, that's no biggie. If I can generate enough 6s, I can basically cause injuries onto my enemies with regeneration as well. So that part's kind of nice. I am sad about losing my Bombardiers, however. I wanted more fighters to stand up to mass infantry, so that's the reason why I kind of dumped them to get more close combat-oriented kind of troops, but I don't know. I might have to find some way to add into the list somehow. Just having those D6 Strength 4 hits that give you multi-shot and Armor Piercing 2 is really nice to have, especially when you try to soften up any units before you go losing into them. Having just the Thunder Cannon do that is not as effective. I need to find some way to basically shore that up. With that being said, the Knights of Equitaine are no joke. Those guys are deadly. I remember people talking about like how Bretonnian armies in the last Warhammer in 8th edition, how weak they were, and how they didn't have a new army book and all that kind of jazz, but this time these guys are just deadly in the 9th Age. They have good strength, high armor saves, they got decent access to magic, they also got killer ward saves as well as magic resistance saves as well, so these guys are durable. These guys, if they charge you and any one of their knight units with all the magic and the high strength that they have, they will just basically destroy your army. You have no other recourse but basically to die at that point. Plus, they're also cheap enough to where you can get quite a lot of those guys as well, so they are so good, in fact, that I'm actually thinking about jumping ship and actually making my own Knights of Equitaine army with these fanatics and start using those guys from now on, because they were ridiculous. The way Sir Wardslot was just rolling his ward saves and magic resistance saves like it's nobody's business was pretty demoralizing. I'm like, man, that's actually kind of cool. So, I don't know. I might be changing my army up. I'm not really sure about that yet. But anyways, I was sure lucky that I won this battle with a miscast. The miscast that my opponent had in the last part of the battle with his wizard basically kind of saved me on that one. This is the closest I've ever been to losing with my army. As you can see, a lot of my guys are basically wiped out. So, I mean, who knows? If we would have gotten to the turn without that miscast, I could have been defeated. But in the end, it ended up being a victory. So once again, having a great time with this army. I'm loving this new 9th Age edition rules. I'm loving the armies as well. I'm loving it from playing against my friends again, using 9th Age. Age of Sigmar is fun and all that jazz, but it just didn't feel like it used to. It didn't have the same kind of satisfaction as I'm getting with the 9th Age, so this is pretty awesome as well. So once again, that pretty much rounds it up for this army. Feel free to comment comment, like, subscribe, give me comments or any adjustments on the rules in case you made any mistakes, because we're still learning them and we're planning on making some mistakes later on anyways. So feel free to add those in the comments. So yeah, that's going to pretty much do it for this one. So see you guys on the flip side. Bye.